The following show was recorded January 13th, 2023.
You're listening to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and it's time for this week's Long Island News, the show that talks to newsmakers from Nassau and Suffolk County that matter to Long Island and Long Islanders like you. So each week, we'll have a conversation about issues that affect all of us. I live on Long Island just like you, and I want to know more about where my tax dollars are going, and I want to know more about the people making the big decisions that affect all of us. Well, this week is the second of a two-part episode where I'm very happy to welcome back as my guest for another conversation. Please help me welcome back to the show New York Democratic Assemblywoman Gina Sillitti from Assembly District 16, which covers most of the town of North Hempstead. And a reminder, if you missed our first conversation from last week, you can listen back to it by searching for this week's Long Island News wherever you listen to podcasts. Well, Ms. Sillitti, welcome back.
So it was a really great interview. I encourage everybody to go back and listen. It's a lot of fun. I was saying in the first that this was my first time in a radio
and it
studio.
Didn't hurt, right?
No. It's been very, very, very good. Yeah, no, we're having a lot of fun.
But we are working on getting it catered.
We'll work on that.
We'll see how we make out with that. Yeah. We covered a bunch of stuff in the first, like infrastructure and things like that.
Yes.
We talked before when you came on, and you were mentioning what it's like in the assembly.
Yeah.
When you're working. I've been watching hearings on TV. I watched the speaker vote.
Yeah.
And we did a little research on that. People were shocked that it went 15 times. But back in 1850, it went 133 times.
Did it really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So
this was better.
We may be dysfunctional, but we don't take the cake.
Right. It wasn't the record.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can't imagine what people back then were thinking, but they didn't get instant news.
Yeah.
They didn't know until a week later that something like that
and
happened.
it had been resolved by that point.
Although I think it went on for months.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it had to. 133 votes.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And now I'm going to have to go read about this.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Really. But, we just said, is this news as we think?
For the record, Bill, it took us one round in the assembly. I know.
Right.
It's a different cordiality. Listen, do we disagree? Of course. We disagree on a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
But the Democratic Speaker of the Assembly and the Minority Leader, when they each did their votes, they hugged before Speaker Heasey went to go give his speech. Mm-hmm. They have mutual respect for each other. And listen, it can get contentious, but on the floor of the assembly, we have different rules. Like in Congress, I feel like they're calling people out and doing people by name and like all this stuff. We don't do that. We can't call out any member by name. We, just like, oh, my colleague referenced, but it's all very professional. And if it's not, we get called out. They'll bang the gavel and, we get reprimanded right there on the floor.
Right.
So it kind of keeps you in check to be civil with one another. But certainly, obviously, there are disagreements.
Well, you've read the news lately. The GOP wants to do something with the Ethics Council, like gut it.
I feel like now's not a good time with, the things we're hearing in the news lately about, certain elected officials. I can't imagine who that could be.
Yeah, right. Well, one of the things that we've heard and we hear all the time is, we need unity. We need unity. We need unity.
Correct.
And personally, and I'm not in government, so I can pretty much say what I want about it. I'm just a regular citizen.
Yes.
I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
No, it's tough.
My one of my questions is, and I have to chuckle when I see it, but we still go through the idea of swearing in people and giving an oath.
Right.
And my first thought, and I'm throwing this at you, you've never heard this before. Well, you have, but maybe not from me. There were 127 lawmakers that signed on to Louis Gohmere's bill in Texas when he wanted to approach the court and disavow the votes of 5 million voters. Mm-hmm. Those 127 lawmakers took an oath.
Yeah.
And then they're directly involved in a usurpation, I guess, of the mechanism of government.
So what's the point?
They all took the oath.
Right.
And the other thing, we haven't gotten to George Santos yet, but we will. When he lied about all of his background stuff, there's no law against that.
No.
None of that is illegal.
I know.
So what they're approaching is campaign finance and how he dealt with the money he got to run.
Right.
There are laws against that.
Right.
We have these oversight things, and we have ethics, and we have, and it doesn't appear that any of that is working or.
No, and it's, when you look at ethics, it's a lot of times it's conflict of interest and, money taken, money paid, and, that sort of thing. But, the lies, and they're not embellishments, as he, originally, they were literally, I'm Jewish, not Jewish.
I graduated from Baruch. I went to NYU.
Yeah. And the fact that it took him a week to get the information out. Like, listen, if somebody would say, "Hey, Gina, what's your religion? Hey, Gina, where do you live? Hey, Gina, where you went to school?" I would have been like, "I'm Catholic. I live in Port Washington. I went to the University of Georgia." Like, I would be able to answer him in more than a week.
Right.
And the reason is because it was in complete, utter fabrication. And it's interesting. Like, if somebody were to say to me, I'm Jewish. My grandparents were, Holocaust survivors. The first thing out of my mouth wouldn't have been like, prove it.
Oh, right.
You never would have said that. You say, how incredible, what an amazing life they must have had, all those different things. You would never fact check that. Or if, there's things that are sacred, the Holocaust, 9/11, these things that you just don't lie about. And, it's incredibly
and as a legislator, there should be all things he doesn't lie about.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it?
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, it's, is it illegal? Is it disqualification? No, it's for him to do the right thing and step aside, which I have called for him to do so. Right. I called it before he took the oath of office. I wanted to give him, due diligence to do it on his own before that day, before his swearing in day, to do the right thing, and he didn't.
And yet he still got to vote for the Speaker of the House.
I know.
And not a Republican said a word.
I know. It seems that it was obviously, 15 rounds, his vote was certainly needed. And that's probably a part
And he still didn't get 218.
I know. It was really incredible to watch that entire process. It really, really was. And listen, the Republicans have the majority in the House. They, should be picking, their speaker, the person to represent them. But the fact that there were just 20 people that were literally holding up government. There were elected officials that couldn't get constituent casework done because they, technically weren't in office.
Oh, right.
That's crazy.
Right.
Like, this is your job. And they were holding it up because of whatever deals and whatnot that they wanted to do. It was honestly kind of disgusting. So, listen, he's speaker, we're moving on. But, with Santos, so people say, Gina, what can you do? What can we do about this? So some things that I would like to do, it's so tricky. It's very complicated with election law and,
Well, here's the thing.
And then federal requirements and all, talking about multi-jurisdictional again.
Well, if he had been called out about this long before.
I wonder, Bill, if it would have made a difference.
The landscape would have been a little different because we may have had one more Democrat instead of a.
Perhaps. I'm also wondering if it would make a difference. So think about it.
No,
think it was
right.
like the throes of the election. Everything was so heated. Everybody was yelling at each other. All these negative mail going back and forth. And, if the Democratic candidate, Robert Zimmerman, would have stood up, because obviously the press wasn't taking it. He had the information, or he had the red flags of information, didn't have the full breadth.
Right.
If he would have given it, if he would have gone in press conference and said, this is this and this and this, and, this is what we've learned, just the basics,
yeah.
They would have said, he's just trying to taint his reputation.
Because it was during campaign time.
Yeah.
So in the context, they would say, he's just blowing off steam.
So I wonder if because people were so hyper-focused on the crime issue and public safety, that finding out that this person was, essentially a liar, coming from the Democratic candidate, I really wonder if it would make a difference. Yeah. I don't know.
George Carlin said it, that your average man That would be the 50th percentile.
Yeah.
He's not very bright. And then the real scary realization is that half of the country is below him.
Right.
And, this is what we're dealing with.
Right.
We have an electorate that's not very bright.
I am very lucky that my constituents are incredibly engaged, and pay attention to, for better or for worse, they pay attention to everything I'm doing.
At least they ask you,
yes.
What's going on? Let me understand what this is.
And also, I try and I think all elected officials should be doing this, is that I try to be as accessible as I possibly can. I be in the community as much as I can. So if they heard something that sounded kind of wacky, that was a fabrication.
Hey, Gina, what's up with this?
Yeah, hey, Gina, what's up with that?
Right.
This doesn't seem right, or they don't believe it because they know me personally. But I mean, that's what we have to be as elected. We just have to be better. And the statement that I made about George Santos and asking him to step aside, as elected officials across the spectrum and leaders in our community, we have to do better. We have to be better. Yeah. And the fact that people can just like willy-nilly lie about everything and get elected to the United States House of Representatives is completely incredible to me. Absolutely incredible. And here we are. And he's doubling down. The Republican Party is not going to support him in 2024 if it continues that long. They've just the other day called on him, to resign. Was hoping that would have happened earlier, but here we are. And now we're just waiting on him. We're waiting on him to do the right thing. Because honestly, how am I going to get anything done from him? I talked about,
you can't.
I was talking about infrastructure and all the things that we have to do. Great Neck is flooding. Port Washington is flooding. I said to George Santos, because he said, I'm going to get money for the district. I go, George, I got a list. I don't care if you take credit, or get the credit. I just want them done. I don't care who gets credit. Right. But now I got nothing. Right. So obviously, we have our senators, who represent the entire state. So our constituents, by the way, if you have a federal issue and you can't get a hold of, George Santos's office, we do have our
they're
Senator
steering people
Schumer and
to
Gillibrand.
D'Esposito's office because George Santos's local office is not open yet.
I saw that, but we do have, D'Esposito is brand new, right? And he's just getting up and running.
Right.
But we do have, the Senate offices who are, fully staffed, and so there's another avenue as well who actually represent those people.
Right, you heard it here, folks. You heard it here.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to get a phone call later from Schumer's office, being like, Gina,
they're calling me. Well, that'd be good.
But you know what? Good.
Yeah.
The folks need help. Let's help them. Right.
That'd be good. What would the process be? Let's just say Santos resigns. Because my thought is, if you hadn't pulled this stuff in the first place, the landscape would look a lot different now.
Right.
We might not have had a whole Republican ticket from Long Island.
Right. From especially the North Shore.
And then the count for the speaker would have been a little different and gone a little different.
It may have, yeah.
All of those things.
Like dominoes, right?
But what happens now? Would there be another election?
Sure, yeah. So, someone asked me, does the governor appoint? So, if it was Senate, United States Senate, it would be a government appointment or a governor appointment. But for this, it would be a special election. It would be a special election. There would be no primary. It's not like there's a primary and then the Democratic candidate and the Republican candidate. It's, party leadership appointment. They pick the candidate to run and then they run a special election, a date called for by the governor. So it may be, depending on when in the cycle, it may be on election day. In November, or it might be another date depending on, like if say he resigns tomorrow, obviously I doubt the governor would wait. I don't know if she could, wait till November. It would be earlier. So it's the timing, but it would be a special election.
Yeah. That seat would be open then for all that.
It would be a hot race, Bill. Hot.
Yeah. You're listening to this week's Long Island News on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and my guest today is New York Democratic Assemblywoman Gina Sillitti from Assembly District 16, which covers most of the town of North Hempstead. I go back to, and I think the reason we're in the atmosphere we're in is because we had 4 years of Trump, a guy who couldn't tell the truth if his life depended on it. And that atmosphere, to many, became acceptable.
Yeah.
I got the impression that the people that put him in office were so fearful of the world that they needed somebody who was low down and dirty to go face that horribly scary world.
Right.
And they got him.
And also, he promised things, right? So it's, people who were down on their luck or, whatever. They saw this person who said, I'm going to bring you up. I'm going to make sure your life isn't as bad as it is. But
I went to that church once.
Yeah. And it's, and unfortunately, a lot of people believed him, grifter, right? But also, I think, you talk about unity and you talk about, I was talking to you earlier about toxicity. You can't, sometimes I can't even post something nice on social media about, the Boy Scouts. If, there's something else happening in the community, you get people just, going after you and it's not right. But I think there is, I always say words matter. And the things that you say as a leader to other people matter. So when you talk and you say things like, Wuhan flu and, derogatory things about other groups of people, demonizes them and makes them the other, then people who are, mental illness or down on their luck say, yeah, it's their fault.
But
They're my problem.
We know that all these tactics work.
We've seen it. We've seen rise in anti-Semitism. We've seen rise in Asian hate, and it doesn't take a lot to figure out where it came from.
No, we became a country of immigrants that hates immigrants.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yes.
And we've all had our struggles when our family came here. My grandparents were immigrants, and at one point the Italians, were they were dark, quote unquote.
You could always tell the new ethnic group in the country when you look at the prize fighters.
Right.
Because they always reflected the newest immigrants
that's interesting.
Coming into the country.
No,
I mean, it was a quick way, if somebody had those skills, it was a quick way to make money and get yourself
No, it's
set.
It's the Italians, Irish, you had the remember the Chinese Exclusion Act. It's all these things that we did to new people just coming here to build a better life for themselves.
Yep.
This country has unfortunately a very strong history of going after the new people.
Oh yeah, there were signs. I remember down in the Navy Yard, they used to have sailors and dogs keep off the lawn, and Irishmen need not apply.
Yeah,
I mean
it's incredible.
The sad thing about that is that each one of those groups uses the fact that they were also discriminated against to let who's ever being discriminated against now continue.
We just have to do better.
We understand that you were Italian and you came here and then nobody wanted you to work here, and we get that, but that doesn't mean you can do it to the new guy.
Right.
We really have to. I think it's a change of mindset, definitely. We have to realize that the reason America became strong is because of all of the immigrants and the talents they brought to this country. Because look at a perfect example to me is like when Spain kicked out all the Moors, and they had a brain drain, and for the next 500 years, every satellite country of Spain has been poor.
This is why we listen to college radio, folks. We learn something new every day.
Well, I'm full of useless facts, but it just, I really, I get the fervor of campaigns, and most of the things that are said, you have to shake your head at.
I know it's very difficult to have a thick skin, and it's even harder for our families, right?
Yeah.
When you run for office and you're an elected official, it's not just you that becomes.
Somebody just called my mother a bum. I'm upset.
Yeah. And it's and then they, I tell, there was one time where, I stood up for some LGBTQ kids and I got some heat for it from some of the extreme folks. And I said to my family, the trolls are out. They're commenting on my posts, just like regular posts, like Boy Scout posts and Girl Scouts posts and, all kinds of wacky things. Ignore it. Just ignore it. Don't look. People don't know who I am, and they just got to say the crazy things and get it off their chest.
Well, see, Now, that scenario, that's one scenario. What I'm thinking about is the school board meetings.
Yelling at kids.
We've started to stack school board meetings with people who don't even have children in the district.
Right.
This is a concerted attack.
I wouldn't say don't have children in the district, but may not live in the district.
Some of them had no connection whatsoever to the district.
Right.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a continuing tactic.
100%.
And I know that school boards only have two choices. They can either let everybody talk, or they have the right to close the school board meetings and let nobody talk. They've all tried to take the tack of, well, we got to let people talk. But you're going to see this kind of stuff. The first thing was masks. I see a big construction worker standing at a school board meeting crying about his kid had to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And,
it's, hopefully we're obviously not going to have those issues, this, thankfully.
Well, it's going to rear its ugly head somewhere.
I'm sure it will. But it's, as far as, some of the COVID-19 issues, because I think we're, in a much better place than we were. It was a safety issue for the kids. It was a safety issue for everybody. But, now we're in a much, 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 much better situation. So now, the shift is, what the kids are being taught and, and certain things. And so I think you're going to see a shift in focus away from COVID-19 to some other,
Well, one of the things I always like to bring up, only because I looked at them, I don't think anybody else did, is the voting records. Some of the people that complained that, the Democrats have been in office for 4 years and they haven't done anything.
I know.
Okay, let's see how you voted on the 200 plus bills they brought up.
I know.
And it was always no.
Right.
So now I'm looking at Republicans saying, you wanted to complain about what the Democrats didn't do, but you voted no on everything.
Right.
Our electorate is not smart enough to look at the vote.
Right. And that's, I think, also where the assembly is a little bit different. You see much more collaboration. And, listen, there's certainly going to be issues where, obviously choice, guns, but there are 100% Republicans that, vote with the Democrats. 90% of our bills are almost unanimous. There, changes to the law, whatever. But, think of the top 10 hot issues, then that's when you see, the partisan stuff. But yes, I agree with you. I would love to see, and I've said to, even Newsday mentioned it, Gina has, she collaborates with both Democrats and Republicans because honestly, that's who I represent. I represent everybody. I don't represent just Democrats. Yeah. And I want to hear both sides. I want to hear from my Republican colleagues. If you have a question, you have a concern about this, come talk to me. And you think we should be doing it this way, come talk to me. How will that affect your district? And
you will know right away when they begin to talk to you whether you're hearing the party line or whether you're hearing a genuine concern.
A district specific concern and issue. So yeah, it's I guess in that sense, I'm lucky that it's much more collaborative and collegial.
It sounds a lot more fun than what I've been watching on.
I know listen, you can watch Albany sessions. It's very exciting. It's on like one of the public access, it's I like it. I'm a weirdo. I don't mind driving to Albany. My car doesn't like it that much. I don't mind the drive. It's very.
Do you listen to music or do you listen to books on tape or?
It's so funny. I'm trying to figure out still like what's my thing. Sometimes I just sit in silence and think of all the things I have to do. I do a lot of phone calls. I'll do constituent calls in the car. Okay. So like my staff will call me and then plug the person in.
You're rolling office.
On my rolling office. Right. You know what I do sometimes? I watch. Right. I'm quoting folks. I'm quoting. Listen to old TV shows, something I've seen 100 times and just listen to it in the background because I know what's happening. Like Alias is one of my old-time favorites. Yes. Stargate,
You know what? I'm a child of actually I was born in the 50s. But being a child of the 60s, television is always on, but it's
the background,
not necessarily watched.
Yes.
It's just on.
Yeah, background. Yeah. So it's sometimes it's better than music. And then sometimes I sing at the top of my lungs in the car. It depends on the day, Belle.
Good for you. That's good. We only have about 3 minutes left.
Oh, all right.
What do you want to bring up? What do you want to say before you, because your constituents are going to listen once you tell them.
Yeah, I know. So I think, between our first interview and the second interview, one of the most important things for me is me being accessible to my constituents and them being able to access me and how to access me and always talk to me about issues, whether it's, the train station in Port Washington, Manhasset, Great Neck, which is, an issue for another day, Bill,
right.
And the schedule changes for the East Side access, or, the infrastructure things that we're talking about, or just as simple as Northern Boulevard is a complete and utter disaster. And P.S., it's going to be fixed soon, everybody, very, very soon.
Well, it's only been that way for 100 years. So,
But I want them to be able to reach me. So grab your pen and paper. My telephone number is 516-482-6966. 516-482-6966. Please always reach out. Know that I'm here for you. I live here too, and I want to be the best representative I can be. Did that take up the 3 minutes?
Yeah.
This has been so fun. I just want to say, I can't wait to come back again and talk more.
Okay, as you said it, because that's one of the things I ask.
Well, maybe after the budget's passed, we can talk about
anytime. And anytime there's an issue or something we'd love to have you on and talk to you.
Good.
You were very informative, and we didn't. I still feel like there's another 4 hours we can.
I know, scratch the surface.
So, but. I'm glad you're optimistic.
I try to be.
I don't know that I can concur
with
my own feelings.
I know.
Because people talk about unity and I don't see it yet. I
just try to be kind.
Thomas Jefferson
and do good.
And John Adams.
Yeah.
Both did not like the two-party system, and they argued about it a lot.
Right.
And this is why.
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing is what they were afraid it would devolve to.
Right.
And it has.
It 100%.
So I give you a lot of credit for going into the battle.
I know.
And
just try to stay positive every day.
Waving your sword and doing it.
Thank you.
Anyway, my guest today has been New York Democratic Assemblywoman Gina Sillitti from Assembly District 16, which covers most of the town of North Hempstead. And thank you for taking so much time out of your schedule to speak with us for these past 2 weeks. And thank you for being here. We've done a lot of Zoom stuff, and it gets,
Well, this is way better.
It's great to have you right here.
Thank you.
But as normally happens, the clock on the wall says it's time for this week's Long Island News to get on out of here. I'm Bill McIntyre, and remember you can listen to us by searching for this week's Long Island News wherever you listen to podcasts. And also, we're right here every Friday at 3 p.m. on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.